Hi everybody, welcome to PJTV. I'm Bill Whittle. And this is part 2 of PJTV's series on games as part of American culture. Now, in the harsh landscape of indie game development, it's important to get good reviews on blogs and industry trade journals, so stand by for a true tawdry tale of adventure. Zoe Quinn's game, Depression Quest, was one that got a lot of positive reviews from critics right as it was set to be released on the game system called Steambox. But Zoe's former boyfriend alleges that she had a sexual affair with a critic for the video game blog Kotaku in order to achieve the positive reviews. So far, sounds just like Hollywood. Now, soon after these allegations surfaced, Zoe and her family received hate mail and even death threats. This has sparked an international controversy called Gamergate. It's expanded from Zoe's case, and since my friend Andrew Klavan is here, let me do a quick introduction. We'll come back and we'll do the Gamergate case. So, in order to help us understand Gamergate's implications, we have here our expert panel, which is including Bonnie Gordon, who's a former contestant on ABC's live-action role-play reality show called The Quest. She's also a member of the comedy band The Library Bards. And next to her is Xander Jeanneret. He's a former contestant on the TBS show King of the Nerds, and he also hosts an internet gaming show Under the Table. And to my right, of course, is Andrew Klavan, best-selling author, PJTV contributor, and the weaker half of the well-known Klavan and Whittle show right here on PJTV. Drew, I'm going to hand Gamergate off to you for a little capsule introduction because you know a little more about it than I do.
Well, it's a hard thing to understand because the word refers both to the scandal, the Gamergate, and to the people fighting against the scandal. That sexual, the sexual scandals and all that aside, what really came to light was that feminists and leftists, what they call social justice warriors, were infiltrating the review structure of games and giving bad reviews to games and making sure there were bad reviews given to games that didn't fit their leftist ideals. Right, exactly. So someone like me, who's just a consumer who would go to Metacritic and see, well, what's the average of stars? Those averages were being skewed according to politics. Now, most gamers are either libertarian or skew a little bit to the left, but really they started to rebel, and this hashtag Gamergate became their sort of battle cry that they would go on Twitter and other social media to fight back and say, you know, gaming, leave our games alone. Just get out and take your social justice and take your feminism and take your philosophies and get out of our games and let us play, which is a wonderful thing. It should happen more often.
No, it is a wonderful thing. So, Bonnie, let's start with that. The one thing I've seen millennials get absolutely agitated on, they have a great deal of social consciousness, but the one thing that actually gets them out of their chairs is things like regulation of the internet, or you know, even like a Wi-Fi fee or something. As they start messing with their internet, they start to get a little nutty. What do you think about this? Because the whole idea of the internet really, to me, seems to be about absolute freedom. You can't censor it, and therefore you don't censor it, because it's physically impossible to censor the internet. It was designed in a way to be so parallel. So how do you feel about this? Do you feel that it's appropriate that games function in the marketplace of ideas where a game should stand on its own merits without elitist people telling you what to do? Or do you think that the people who are saying, no, we need less misogyny, we need less violence against women, or whatever their case may be, have an actual point?
You know, it really goes both ways. With gaming, as a woman who plays games, it's very hard to see the sexism within the gaming world. You know, where to get to the next level, you have to, you know, beat up a woman, or you know, rape some hooker, or you know, it's. So I understand what's going on. In all honesty, though, games should stand on their own. I mean, it's your own personal decision to play a game. You know, I might not choose to play this game because of this. I might not choose to play this game of that. For reviewing a game, though, because it was made by a woman, and giving it negative reviews or positive reviews because of that, I think that's silly. I think you should review a game because of a game, not because of who made it. It should stand on its own. It really should.
You know, Xander, I'd like to get your take on this too, because this, I think, kind of gets to the core of the issue. When you get into games like Grand Theft Auto or something, you are voluntarily releasing the moral behavior that you would have in the real world. For instance, there was a Star Trek role-playing game out for a while ago, and the Klingon supplement got to be the one that everybody wanted, because the Klingons get to phaser the hostages, right? Yeah. I mean, the Klingons are the ones that get to execute the hostages. Yeah. And there's not one of us who, on some level, doesn't want to execute a few hostages just to see what it feels like. So what do you feel about that? Do you feel that these charges that the feminist critics are leveling are authentic? Do you think it causes actual damage to young men, especially in terms of their attitudes? Or do you think, no, this is a character and it is an environment and we all know that we're not going to actually crowbar a hooker in the real world?
Yeah, well, first I want to go on record that Gamergate is stupid. Like, that whole thing was real dumb.
Why?
Well, for one thing, they didn't have a clear message. Nobody knew what it was or what they were really aiming at.
Yeah.
That was a huge problem. And then a woman by the name of Anita Sarkeesian came out with Feminist Frequency, which was a series of YouTube videos that explored feminism in video games, and there was huge backlash for that by the male game community. And that they kind of took Gamergate as their thing of like, we're anti-feminist, we're anti-social justice warriors, we're anti-Anita Sarkeesian, and we want Gamergate to be our hashtag. You know, that's where we'll gather together. And it's so dumb because it's a very educated look at video games from a slightly biased perspective because she is a woman, but it's there. Like, you can't debate the facts. And then, like, games now, the average audience for video games is 45% is women.
That's
so
incredible.
It's half the demographic that you're ignoring or treating badly or not being able to play.
I want to take issue with everything you just said.
Go.
Yeah.
I was totally on the side of the Gamergaters. I thought
Really?
I thought Sarkeesian. I think she's an idiot. I think that when you're complaining that Super Mario rescues Princess Peach, and that's a problem for her because it shows men rescuing women. Men like to rescue women. They like to dream about rescuing women. And the statistics about women being 45% of gamers is a baloney statistic. I mean, gaming is still almost real intense gaming. Is still almost entirely a male purview, and it was built by males and created by males, so it's going to have a male, it's going to be skewed toward males. Why males are not allowed to have the kind of entertainment they want, where they rescue women from danger, which is a central male daydream.
It's a genetic
I mean,
imperative,
and by the way, if you don't have males who want to rescue women from danger, you're going to have a lot of women in danger. It's not going to be a fun world. So all I'm saying is, I have nothing against Sarkeesian making her comments, but I have a problem when that corrupts the judgment of games at the reviewer level. I mean, she can make her comments, I can make my comments against her. That's great. I love that. But when that infiltrates the reviewing structure so that a game can't get a good review unless it sort of has a pass from the Sarkeesians of the world, I think that's corrupting.
Well, I think it can go the other way too, where what they're talking about with Gamergate was that it was a woman developer and it didn't get a pass because it's a male-dominated world, and there was some like sexual scandal allegedly that happened. And I think that should just be what Bonnie was saying, like taken out of the equation altogether.
Let the game stand alone.
Let the game stand alone.
If it's a good game, who cares if it was developed by a woman or a man? Who cares?
Of course.
Right. But the issue that's bringing up then is the male-dominated going in to rescue someone. I think she just pointed it out, like this is a trope that has happened in the past.
Yeah, she's critical of it, and
true.
I also think the free market is the best judge.
There you go.
I mean, if 45% of gamers are women, if that statistic is true, then there's a lot of money to be made by making games for women. Most people who have made games for women have found that there's really not that much money to be made, and the big money is making, Dragon Quest.
But you're comparing like a AAA title versus like a online game for your phone. Like the quality level is not the same. So if the game is bad, even though it's made for women, that doesn't mean that women are going to be like, this is a good game.
Well, let's talk about how women are represented in video games. Okay. Let's just talk about this, because it's a weird sort of a dichotomy, right? I mean, on one hand, really the first major woman character that I can remember in a video game was Lara Croft.
Right.
That's the first time that men were expected to play a woman character. Anybody who played the game, you're playing this woman,
as a woman,
and she's this tremendously buxom, incredibly sexy babe. So it's kind of a way to get the guys kind of half interested in solving how to jump over the maze, because you get to watch Laura do her thing. But so on one hand, you've got, look, here's the problem. On one hand, in games like Grand Theft Auto or Kingpin or something, women are just objects. It's a level up thing. And at the same time, you also have games where women characters are designed in the game to be fully capable of defeating men characters, which doesn't happen in the real world. You're not going to get a 4'2" or 4'9" or a 5'2" woman beating up a 6'3", 250-pound man in the real world. This is actually a concern of mine. I'm actually concerned about this because I am genuinely concerned that women will assume that because in a game they have the power to beat a man in a game that they'll be able to go out in the real world and get into fights with these guys because they're going to get hurt.
I don't think girls are actually seeing that, because it's the same thing as like the 5-foot nerd guy playing the game, beating up a giant
that's
wrestler.
a great point. I hadn't
You know
really
what I
thought about
mean?
that.
Like it's the exact same thing. It's a fantasy. The girls kicking butt and winning, and that's great. But so is this little nerd guy who'll never be able to beat up. No, I'm not pointing to you, by the way.
It's fine.
So is this guy.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
You don't have to take that.
But you know what I mean? It goes both ways.
That's a great point.
Just because we're women doesn't mean we're delusional. We're
That's
not
a
going to
great
go out
point.
and go into an alley and be like, I've played this game. I'm now Buffy.
That's a great point.
So it goes both ways. But with the whole being, the buxom sex objects, like, Lara Croft, she's a very attractive woman. For me, a lot of the games that guys play, like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto and stuff, I would like to play them, but they don't really have any women characters that we can play. Like we don't get to choose. You guys get to choose so many different characters in some of these games, and there's maybe like sometimes one female character we get to be. There's never a choice for us. So it's never like
think that would increase. It's so easy to make another
character.
character.
It would be so easy to make more
yeah.
women characters, and so you don't even have to create an entire game for women. We want to play the same games the guys are playing. We enjoy those kind of games as well. It's just give us the option to actually play as a woman. I don't want to be like.
So there's just a woman special ops character in Call of Duty or something like that.
That would be amazing. That would be so cool.
The interesting thing about that too is when there is inclusion of a woman character, when you contrast it to the male characters have different aspects. Like this guy's a super hacker genius, and this guy's like an army buff guy. This one's the girl.
The girl.
Yeah, that's our superpower.
The girl.
This one's the girl. This one has boobs. Yeah,
No,
it was
true.
like that's the only thing we got.
And God knows in the real military we have superb women serving out there all the time.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I have to say that I hate to point this out, but I mean, one game that I really loved was God of War. And in the second or third God of War game, there's a scene where he takes a naked woman, props open a door mechanism with her body so that he can go through, and as he goes through, the door comes down and crushes her to death. And I found that so disturbing that was somehow like that was okay for the hero of your game to do. I can't play Grand Theft Auto. I can't play a game where you drag people, let alone the women in it, where you drag people out of their car, innocent people, and hit them over the head with a pipe. Can't do it.
That's a whole
not
other
interesting
show.
to me.
Yeah.
Well, and going on that, when you said with the whole Gamergate thing about how women were arguing because we were being rescued. In my opinion, it's not about being rescued. I don't mind if Super Mario goes to rescue the princess. I grew up on Super Mario. I would go save the princess. I was like, I got her. We're going. It's that. It's the whole raping a woman, beating her to death. To level up to the next.
And
level.
my feeling about that, by the way, is the same as your feeling about fighting. Is that for an adult, if that is part of your fantasy life, well, you're on your own, and that's fine.
Right.
But I do feel I would never want my kid to play.
Children are doing this. Yeah.
My son and I played video games all through his childhood. We sat together and we played video games, and those were the sort of things I edited out. You just don't bring those in when your kid is still being formed.
So maybe we could close on this topic for the day with kind of the fundamental base question, which is, okay, so the question is, can women developers, indie developers, get games made without sleeping around? I mean, if you really want to boil it, hold on. I was being facetious.
No.
Being facetious. But I think the bigger question is, you said earlier, it's like a 4-star title or a major $50 million, $100 game, and that's where the real money is. It's where the real power is. It's where the real marketing is. These all tend to be extremely male-centric games. So the question I really want to ask is, on some level, is this fantasy world of action and adventure an inherently male kind of world? If you're coming out with a game called Depression Quest, and the numbers and the sales are smaller, let's say, than Call of Duty, is that bias and judgment in the culture, or is it simply a fact that I don't need to load up my Xbox One to go on a Depression Quest? I can do that on my own. Jumping out of a jet, on the other hand, or slaying dragons, I need a little horsepower for in terms of the graphics engine.
Sure.
What do you think, Bonnie? Do you think there's a natural kind of inclination to the big male games?
I mean, the fact that the question is, can women develop a game without
Certainly they
get
can.
reviews?
Certainly they can. But can they be
Yeah,
successful
exactly.
games on topic that women that at least that feminists consider appropriate game topics?
Right. I mean, I really just feel the game should stand alone. If I've known many women who have worked in the gaming industry who have helped create some of the best games in the world. And it's really, you know, maybe that one game was used as an example, and it didn't show exactly what full women can do. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, you can't just base it off of this one incident, or, you know, there's so many different games that women are involved with, and
I do think the market is still male.
It's very male dominated. It is, but at the same time, you know, really games should just stand alone. If the game is good, the game is good. If the game is bad, whether it was developed by a woman or a man, I don't care.
Well, that's for sure.
My thoughts on it too is that the game industry, like you said, kind of was like a boys' club when it was growing up. But now that we have people in our generation who have grown up with games, men and women alike, it's just been like a standard that has been established within the industry, but it's never been tested.
Right.
You know, that's just what has sold games in the past, and women can sit down and play a male video game, and men can sit down and play a female-dominated video game, but they just haven't tested the waters.
Well, I think that's a very fair point, but I do think that if it turns out that, in fact, men are more inherently more engaged in competitive, violent scenarios, that market should stand without being attacked for political reasons. That's all.
Let's close with, let's just go one step further on this in terms of inclusion, social aspects of the gaming. So let's talk about the LGBT thing. You were talking earlier about how when you have an online game session with friends or people from around the world, you have a screen avatar and you've got a voice on a headphone maybe. And I've played some first-person shooters and I've played some Counter-Strike games where, you know, it can get, there's nothing I like better than watching videos of people smashing their monitors with hammers. It makes me happy. But basically, is you've got a lot of, most of the time, you got a lot of highly adrenalized young men, young men, and you get a lot of language. Oh, it's a gay. Don't be gay. It's a gay move. Don't be a fag. You know, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think that there are aspects of gaming, especially multiplayer online gaming, that are intimidating to people that where they don't have the face-to-face interaction? Realize maybe they're hurting people's feelings in a way much more deeply than they ever intended to.
Absolutely, yeah, and I can speak volumes on this topic. But
say a few.
Yeah, especially with the inclusion of the word faggot, because that's such a heated word within the LGBTQ community that it's been disassociated in the gaming world, whereas kids don't really know what they're saying when they say that. They just heard other people say it, and they say it themselves. That's gay, that's da-da-da-da. And while I have made the observations in the past that I think it's interesting that people aren't associating it with like homophobic context, the context is still there.
Right.
So if I am a little gay person that's playing a game and I hear this constantly, even though the other person didn't mean it to be homophobic, you're going to internalize and take that no matter what. You know, and so that language is still there and it's very prominent, and it is a problem because we just need to find alternate ways to curse out someone or to say something awful. But it's that shock value that was there, and now it's just become like a norm. Whereas you want to throw a hammer at your TV, but you can't, so you say something that's the most offensive thing you can think of, and that's what that was.
Do you get that, Bonnie? Do you get when you're playing with other people online, and they find out that you're a real-world female instead of a 60-year-old guy in the basement pretending to be Laura Croft or something? Do you find that people, if let's just say you pop somebody in a online shooter, let's say, do you get the kind of, you know, you bitch kind of thing? Do you get that kind of, do they go to this sort of base level kind of thing with you? Yeah,
with women it's more of a like, oh, you're pretty good for a girl.
Yeah,
it's never like the whole, oh, she's a good gamer. It's you're pretty good for a girl, you know? I remember even before like doing the video game thing, Magic the Gathering. I would be one of the only females like at a Magic the Gathering tournament, and they would just be like, and I'd win, they'd just get really upset. Not because I'm a good player, but because I'm a girl. And they would just be like, well, she's, you know, I guess she's okay for a girl. Oh, well, I let her win because she, you know, it's like, well, she's distracting me with her cleavage. I'm like, really? Is that the reason? Like, I'm tapping mana and I'm like seductively looking at you. It doesn't work that way. So with gaming, it's, you know, one of those things where when they do find out you're a girl, they're like, you know, oh, well, you know, you bitch, you know, we get a lot, oh, sorry. But you know what I mean? Like with the same thing, you know, they just don't realize how negative they're being and how offensive they're being because they're just blurting it out in a way that they're, you know, it's like
it's a knee-jerk reaction.
I have to say, I'm always torn about these conversations because on the one hand, I hate the culture of victimhood and offense.
Sure.
I hate, like, I'm so offended, I'm so hurt, you said this and you shouldn't have said that. On the other hand, of course, I think people who act like that are bores and idiots. I always feel like there should be, you know, it really is a question of modeling behavior rather than
I will give you, and we're out of time, I'll just give you one closing observation regarding the slurs that get sent at you guys. And you can try to social engineer those out of society from the top down, but that never works. It has to be it has to be proven. For example, there was a great deal of resistance to women pilots in the armed forces, women fighter pilots, women helicopter pilots, and you simply couldn't get men. You could give them orders, you'll treat them like other pilots, but they wouldn't. The only way they ended up treating them like other pilots was when in combat they found women going into hot zones and taking the same risks and performing the same duties and acting with the same heroism. And once you see that with your own eyes, then the prejudice goes away. There's a great scene in the movie Glory, which was about the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. It was one of the first black regiments in the Civil War. And they're going past other Union troops, and Union troops go, oh, look at this as a little publicity stunt. And when those black soldiers go in there and take those kind of casualties and show that kind of courage, those of them that come out are not, they're not objects anymore, and they don't have to be commanded to respect them. They respect them based on what they saw. And I think as this community gets more and more interactive and more gay gamers and women gamers are just popping the living daylights out of little straight kids, it's not going to be a slur anymore. It's like this gay man just whopped the crap out of me. He's done it 60 times in a row. Maybe I ought to modify my language.
At that point, by the way, somebody saying pretty good for a girl is really the way guys talk when they're paying you a compliment.
And you know what? It never really offends me. Like it takes a lot to offend me. Like I grew up being one of the guys. You know, like I was like the really odd kid with the headgear and the you know.
I've got a very clear mental picture of that. That's all that we have time for our second episode. We're having so much fun. We just do this forever, but we probably will. We'll be back for sure. You can find my friend Andrew Klavan on Klavan and Whittle, as well as my co-host right here, and you can also find him on PJTV. Look for his articles on PJ Media. You can find Bonnie Gordon on Twitter at BonnieBellG, and you can find Xander Jeanneret on Twitter at Xanderific. You won't want to miss the other parts of this PJTV series, so check them out right here on the members-only page or over at the PJTV store. I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again soon.